that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
I'm going to welcome everybody to another show of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. I am George Harvey, believe it or not. And he's Tom Fennell, believe it or not. And this show is based on my research that I do every morning, 7 days a week. And I put up 10 or 15 items that I find interesting in the news relating to energy and global warming at my website, which is geoharvey.wordpress.com. And then I pull together about 20 of them, and we talk about them here on the show. So we're going to start on Friday, November 21st. This comes from edie.net, E-D-I-E, that is. UK farms offer 10 gigawatts of untapped renewable energy potential, according to a report commissioned by the Farm Power Coalition. The bulk of the power, 3 times that of the planned Hinkley Point nuclear plant, would be from ground-based solar and wind with small proportion of anaerobic digestion. And ground-based here means ground-based solar as opposed to rooftop and ground-based wind as opposed to offshore.
So what they're saying is the potential exists already. It's just a matter of implementing it.
Absolutely.
It's there already.
It's there already. So let's just put it in. And we're going to...
10 gigawatts is a significant amount of energy.
Yes, it is. It's what, about 15, 16 times what comes out of Vermont Yankee.
Yeah,
so it's
about that.
And of course, part of the problem that we have with this is that we don't know what that actually means, 10 gigawatts.
It's hard to put your head around a bare number like that.
Yeah, I wish that they had a thing like average capacity or something like that, where you could just take the nameplate capacity and multiply it times the capacity factor and report that as a number.
Well, a number that you see that's probably more useful is how many households it would...
They do that.
They do that.
They do that, yeah.
I'll give you a takeaway from this one, though. They're saying that this potential can be met in a manner that complements food production. They're not going to be taking any land out of food production.
Yes, isn't that beautiful?
Okay. Livestock and poultry production can happily coexist with ground-based solar.
Yes.
And/or farm-scale wind.
Yes.
The nice picture here that comes along with it. These guys are alpacas.
Yes.
And
English alpacas.
Cute. Up close, they're cute. They're neat little things.
They're beautiful animals, but I understand they spit like camels.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, camels and alpacas and
llamas.
Llamas, they spit. They don't generally spit at people unless they're really PO'd.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Going on, Bloomberg. Reported China's commitment on carbon-free energy could be met by 1,000 nuclear reactors, or by 500,000 wind turbines, or by 50,000 solar farms. The cost will come to $2 trillion. I don't like that figure. Holding out the potential for vast riches for nuclear, solar, or wind companies that get in the action. $2 trillion, I think, depends upon how you invest it. And what I'm seeing is that nuclear is a whole lot more expensive than solar or wind.
Well, right now it is, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it only looks like it's going to cost more.
Yeah, where solar and wind will probably cost less.
And if we have another Fukushima somewhere,
yes,
it's going to greatly increase the amount of money being spent on insurance.
Huh.
I mean, in America, the government takes care of that, but it doesn't take care of it worldwide.
Most governments do the same thing.
They're doing the same thing. Well, we wouldn't have a nuclear industry if they weren't.
Yeah, and the value of that insurance is kind of incalculable because nobody is actually paying money for it. It's just that the taxpayers will foot the bill if there's a disaster.
Yeah.
And so we don't know how much it costs unless something goes wrong.
Unless something goes wrong, you're right.
But you know that it's worth a lot of money because even the nuclear industry says that the nuclear industry wouldn't survive
There's two
if they had to
takeaways
buy
from
their
this
own.
one.
Yeah.
One is, in order to accomplish these radical economic makeovers, it's going to cost a lot. We need to put in a lot more capacity than we've got now.
Right.
It's going to take a long time.
It's going to take time.
A long time.
It's going to take a lot of
capacity. It will
capacity.
happen. It's inevitable.
Right.
It will happen, but it's going to take a long time.
Right.
This isn't going to happen by 2020.
No.
The other thing is, and this is applicable to us too, China knows that their model, which has done very well up until recent times, has run its course and needs to shift. That's true here too. The utility model that has worked so well in the 20th century has reached its sell-by date.
Right.
And some people are resisting it. Some people are moving with the times. Some people are getting ahead of the times. But things are going to change.
Yes.
And I think they're going to change for the better.
Yes, I think they will. I think the bottom line on that, in terms of the ratepayer, is that he's going to pay very little, or as you point out, sometimes nothing at all. The price of power is going to go to zero.
Well, certainly inside of a generation, or at the most two, the whole idea of paying for your energy is gone out the window. People are going to laugh at it. You know, these guys used to burn oil, you know? Isn't that a knee slapper?
Yeah, I guess it is. Okay. The next item from UT San Francisco, the Southern California utility customers will pay $3.3 billion in costs associated with the early shutdown of the San Onofre nuclear generating station under a settlement approved Thursday. That's, I guess, a week, the week before. Oh, wait a minute. No, this was probably November 20th. By the California Public Utilities Commission. The deal resolves who pays,
but
consumers or
stockholders.
stockholders.
This wasn't a top-down thing. These guys been negotiating on this. They've been giving and taking.
Yeah, and you know what? From my feeling on this is that they shouldn't have been negotiating at all. They should. This was a problem that
This was one where they screwed up big time.
They did indeed. You know, I mean, and it was Mitsubishi and the utilities that screwed up, because they changed out 2 steam generators, changed the design, told the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that it was a drop-in replacement from the old design, and the new design didn't work. So why should the ratepayers do that?
Well,
why should they pay for that? I can tell you why.
Right. I think they just said, we want power.
I'll tell you why they should pay for it. Because the people who own the San Onofre nuclear power plant have got more money to spend on attorneys. That's why they should pay for it. Because poor people are poor, they have to pay more. Really, that's what it boils down to. It's infuriating.
Well, there's more going on there, because as we speak, there's a lawsuit going on against Mitsubishi.
Well, hopefully the lawsuit against Mitsubishi is going to wind up being something that will ameliorate this ratepayer thing.
Well, if I remember the article correctly, if Mitsubishi loses, I'm trying to think of the name of the 2 utilities involved. They're going to get the settlement, and it will go to the ratepayers.
It'll go to the ratepayers. Well, I certainly hope that's true.
They'll get lower electricity rates out of it if Mitsubishi loses.
Yeah, and if Mitsubishi wins, then the ratepayers lose, because Mitsubishi has better attorneys than the
Southern California.
Why, you know, this is really, that in itself is kind of infuriating. The utilities don't have to win that, because if they lose, they can bill the ratepayers. It doesn't. It's it's not a big problem for them.
If they lose, they don't have to do anything.
If they lose, they don't have to do anything. If they win, they don't get anything.
Back.
So why should they pursue this? They can let Mitsubishi off the hook.
Well, they can, and maybe they will.
Okay.
Money talks.
Yeah, and of course, if they lose, they will lose something, but it'll be only about a third of what the ratepayers pay.
That is, in fact, San Onofre there.
Isn't it beautiful? Oh, well. The next item, Texas Transmission and Distribution Company Oncor is proposing installing energy storage on the Texas grid with thousands of battery systems ranging from the size of a fridge to a dumpster around the state.
This is big.
Yeah, having a combined capacity of 5 5,000 megawatts and a combined energy storage of 15,000 megawatt hours.
Well, that's about half the amount of storage that exists now in the whole country.
This is amazing. You know, we're moving into new territory here. Really.
This is definitely moving
Seriously.
into new territory.
And of course, 5,000 megawatts is what, about 8 times the output of the Vermont Yankee plant?
Yep.
And 15,000 megawatt hours is about what the Vermont Yankee plant would produce in a day.
Well, I mentioned some of these guys are getting ahead of the game, and these guys are in that
Getting
group.
ahead of
They're
the game.
Definitely getting ahead of the game.
Yep.
They can see what's going on, and they're saying we're going to be ready.
Right. That article is in Scientific American. Saturday, November 22nd. Sir David King. This is a fascinating piece from telegraph.co.uk.
Oh yeah, this
Sir
is a good
David,
one.
yeah, Sir David King, former chief scientist and champion of the nuclear new build, that's a new word, says Britain might be able to do without nuclear power altogether, and that the real priority should be on developing ways of storing electricity so as to be able to depend on the famously intermittent sun and wind.
And this guy is in a position to know what he's talking about.
Yeah. Do you suppose that we could make some money as kind of facilitators if we introduced Sir David King to the folks at Encore?
Yeah, that might make some sense. By the way, have you been push-pulled by Yankee yet?
Push-pulled?
Push-pulled.
Push-pulled.
Yeah, they got a push-pull out there.
I haven't
Calling you
been.
up on the telephone and asking you all sorts of wonderful questions about Yankee.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been. Maybe they know better.
I don't know. I get at least, this wasn't a robocall. It was really a person.
Oh, really?
I get at least 3 robocalls a day, and I'm on the no-call list.
Maybe that's why they call you. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. If we have
Britain
time,
might
maybe
well
we
be able to do without atomic power altogether, and that the real priority should be, you just said that, developing ways of storing electricity so as to be able to depend on famously intermittent sun and wind.
Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is that this guy clearly thinks that this is very possible, well within reach.
Absolutely.
You know, he wouldn't be advocating.
And he
it
has
otherwise.
been traditionally a big supporter of nuclear.
Right, and an important one.
Very
He's the
big
chief
supporter.
scientist.
Yeah.
So, okay, next item is from Grist.
Oh,
And
yeah,
what it
Grist.
says is Walmart has been showing off its green credentials lately, but look a little closer and you'll see this emperor's outfit isn't all that it appears to be.
So it's good public relations, but it's a lot of nonsense.
Right, 3% of Walmart's U.S. power is produced by its renewable energy projects and special green power purchases, according to data supplied by the company to the EPA.
Yeah. Very reliable.
I think you can bet that the company is not understating its case on this.
We decided to take a look at what we found as a great big filthy mountain of coal.
Oh dear.
Walmart is in fact a massive consumer of coal-fired electricity. And the reason for that is that the company uses more electricity to power its network of U.S. retail operations and distribution centers than the residents of Alaska, Delaware, Hawaii, Maine, Rhode Island, and Vermont. They're big. They're very big combined.
Is that combined? Okay.
And most of their users of energy are in states where there's a lot of coal into the grid mix.
Right. Okay. Next item. The weather may be cold across most of North America this week, but back in October, temperatures were soaring around the world, in some places reaching record levels that over what is normally seen during the month.
We showed this graph on the left already last week or the week before, but October was hot.
Yeah, hottest.
November was
This
hot.
will probably be the hottest.
September was hot.
Hottest year on record. That is from the Weather Network. People who are not just pointing their fingers using blindfolds at the data.
I guess the graph on the left, or the map on the left, I think is air temperatures.
Yes.
And the graph on the right is the land and ocean temperature.
Yes.
And it's interesting to show that Siberia has been cold.
Siberia.
Western U.S., as we well know, has been warm.
Yep.
Western Europe has been warm.
Yeah.
Australia's been warm.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yep. From Clean Technica, we have this. Market research firm IHS has just projected that the home energy storage market will grow 10 times over from 2014 to 2018, going from 90 megawatts in 2014 to 900 megawatts in 2018.
Well, that's not very many years.
No, it's not. Areas of growth.
This is the home energy. This is individuals buying this stuff. This isn't utilities like Texas that we just talked about.
That's right, but it's not. We're not talking the United States here.
They're not buying batteries like I'm showing you there.
This is Germany, Australia, Italy, the UK, and in the United States, California and Hawaii.
These are the biggest growth areas.
Probably Alaska too. I would think that you'd get growth in Alaska.
Well, people are starting to realize that it makes sense to generate solar voltaic or whatever you got, store it, and use it at night.
Right.
And it's just an idea whose time has come, and now the technology is making.
Well, you know, we've mentioned a few times on this show. There was a guy who was a university professor in Maryland who got a Tesla and just had it plugged in.
Yeah,
and he was making $150 a month by having his Tesla plugged in. And if you think 80 kilowatts of kilowatt hours rather, if he could get that at $300 per kilowatt hour, that would be $24,000. And that $24,000 investment is just a fraction of what a Tesla costs. And he could make $150 a month. Now, whether he would want to do that, whether it's economically feasible or not, is another thing.
I tell you, if I had a Tesla, I want to drive it.
I'm sure you would. Okay.
I'd have excuses for driving it all the time.
I'm sure, at least for a while. The next short term, the next 10 years or so. Okay, on Sunday, November 23rd, and this from Clean Technica also, Australian energy provider AGL Energy gave some insight into how it was preparing for solar and storage. AGL plans to launch its own power purchase agreement model over the next year, early next year, and will allow solar and storage to be installed in homes, solar plus storage to be installed in homes at zero upfront cost. It says it aims to have 1 million distributed customers by 2020.
So these are all individual customers that these people are basically financing.
Right.
Making it affordable.
Right.
And the people are saving money.
Yep.
They're paying off the loan.
Right.
It sounds like a win-win situation.
So the utility, instead of becoming an energy provider, is providing a connection to the grid, which can be used in a pinch. You can sell power to it. You can get power to it if you're. And in addition to that is doing the financing. We're just seeing a model develop here for making money.
That's what it's all about. So these guys, besides being in the wires business, they're in the banking business.
That's what they're looking at, I think.
And why not? I mean, somebody's got to do it.
Well, somebody has to finance this shift.
I let my $1 million out last couple of years ago.
And it hasn't come back, and it won't be back until January, right?
But the point of it is, and I've said this before, there's some very, very smart people out there looking at the opportunities.
Yes.
And coming up with ideas. And some of these ideas are going to turn out to be very good ones.
Yes.
This may
probably
very well
a bunch
be
of
one
them. Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of what Green Mountain Power is doing. Okay, next, also from Clean Technica, India's recently announced target to install 100 gigawatts of solar power capacity by 2022 would make it the largest solar power market, one of the largest solar power markets in the world, and put it in direct competition with China. Essentially, India wants to do in 5 years what China plans to do in 10. 100 gigawatts of solar power.
Well, there's a picture up there of a very, very huge solar installation. And it's real. This one is it's on the ground now in India in the state of Gujarat. Mm-hmm. And look how big it is.
Well,
I can't tell you how big it is.
It looks like it could be miles long.
It is. It has to be.
Yeah. And 100 gigawatts of solar power, getting back to this thing of, capacity factor and so forth. In India, I would imagine solar power probably has a capacity factor of about 0.25.
0.25?
Yeah.
My figure is more than that.
You think more?
Well,
If it's at
this
0.3,
isn't rainforest there. That's desert.
yeah. If it's at 0.3,
Yeah.
I mean it's 0.2 in Vermont.
Yeah.
If it's at 0.3, then that would mean that it would be about a third of an American nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
A little bit larger share of an Indian nuclear power plant, but with 100 of these, that would be the equivalent of about 50 Vermont Yankee plants.
Yeah.
70 of them. This is a lot of energy. This is a lot of power they're talking about producing here.
Well, this guy, what's his name? He's the Prime Minister? Oh, Modi.
Yeah.
He's made a promise to the Indian people,
Yeah.
most of whom don't live in places like Calcutta.
Yeah.
They live out in the boondocks.
Right.
He's promised them enough power to have a television set, a stove, and a cell phone
Right.
within a reasonable period of time. He's committed. I mean, that was basically what he ran on
Yep.
and got elected.
Yep.
So now he's got to,
And it's a short period of time too.
yeah, and
This,
now he's got to do it.
this is connecting something around 300 or 400 million people with electrical power within the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
This is very fast work they're going to have to do.
This picture that we see is only part of the solution. Most
Right.
of the solution is going to be very localized,
Right.
very small.
Right.
They're putting these things on canals. They're putting these things on roads. They're putting these things on railroads. Wherever they have a chance to put up a solar array, they're doing
Over
it.
a canal is an interesting place.
Yeah.
Floating in a lake is another interesting place. Yeah.
So he's put his chin out. It's out there. But
Yep.
he's trying to make good on it. It looks like he will succeed. We got a spy.
Do we?
Are you filming?
Yes, we are. You want to join us?
No, you have a guest.
We have a guest.
Oh, I just have a message that Tomas thinks he can make it at 10:30.
Well, he's welcome. That would be great.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Terry.
I didn't
Okay.
quite catch what's going on here.
This is the guest I had been talking about earlier.
Oh,
He may be
okay.
able to come in at
Maybe he'll
10:30.
come.
I want to mark down the time at which that happened.
Yeah, I'll read the takeaway from this. The Prime Minister has promised access to electricity for every household in the country by the end of the decade. Now that's a hell of a big promise.
It's a very big promise.
India already has an installed capacity of 250 gigawatts,
Yeah.
dominated by fossil fuels. That's what's there now.
Yeah, coal specifically.
Basically
They've got
coal,
a huge
yeah.
amount of coal.
The additional electricity demand creates a massive opportunity for renewable energy resources. And that's what's going on there. It's going to be a lot cheaper to put these things, to distribute these things throughout the country than it is to create a whole new grid.
Yes. A lot cheaper because you don't have to have wires stretching
Bingo.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And that means that you've got a very small amount of infrastructure that has to be put in, because what we're talking about is solar and batteries. And even if solar and batteries were more expensive, which it turns out nowadays they're not,
They're not.
but even if they were more expensive, on the
still
ground
makes
in India, they would be less expensive, by far.
And it's just what I was mentioning about the canals. Small-scale projects that would cover thousands of kilometers of canals and millions of roofs are also catching up fast.
Yeah.
And state governments are trying to emulate the success achieved by Gujarat, which is a state,
Yes.
under Modi. While
Yeah.
he was chief minister, I guess he came from Gujarat and did already a lot of this
Yeah.
while he was chief minister there.
It's going to be interesting to see what this guy does.
Yeah, it is.
It really
He's certainly
is.
sticking his neck out. You know?
Well, and it looks to me like he's going to make good on this.
Well, he's going to make good or die trying.
Okay, and the next item is also from Clean Technical, also on Sunday, November 23rd. Germany is arguably the leading renewable energy market in the world. It's big in wind energy, biomass, and of course solar. Professor Dr. Bruno Berger of the Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy Systems ISE, has released a series of charts. Now, do you have these charts?
I have the charts, so let me scroll through the charts because that's all that's
Yeah, that's all. That's the whole article.
And I'll scroll
Yeah.
through the charts.
This is kind of
I'll put them up and
yeah.
and they put remarks underneath the chart. So
Yeah.
let's read the remarks because they're applicable.
Yes.
So the first one on the top left is wind power. It's net installed capacity. And it says wind power is 35 gigawatts offshore, 616 megawatts. 35 gigawatts onshore, 616 megawatts offshore. And it says wind, solar, and biomass now have more power capacity online in Germany than natural gas and coal. Solar has more than any other source, followed by wind. And then they add parenthetically, that's cool.
Yes.
So that's the installed power. The next graph on the right is the electricity production for 2014, or at least for the first 10 months. And it says, unfortunately, there's still a long way to go before solar and wind surpass fossil fuels
Now,
in generation.
we should talk about why this is the case so people understand it. Again, we're back to this business of capacity factors. Solar has a bigger capacity factor than coal, but coal has a bigger capacity factor than solar. So when you have to multiply the two of them together to get the actual output. And what we're seeing in this second chart is the actual output. They still have to grow.
It's the actual production.
It's the actual production.
The first one is what's installed. The second one, what you're paying for.
Right.
And
you can think about this easily because, you know, if the sun shines 8 hours a day, then the PVs are only producing power 8 hours a day. And it's not at 100% production the whole time.
Only 100% for about an hour. Right?
Yeah. The coal, on the other hand, can run 24 hours a day, has to go down every once in a while, will go down unexpectedly once in a while, but you have to you have to take all these into account, which is
it's also that the coal has been there for 100 years.
That's true.
So it says
the coal plants are old.
What?
The coal plants are old.
They're old, yeah.
And now
There's
they're
still
talking
a long
about
way to go before solar and wind surpass fossil fuels in generation.
Yeah.
But solar, wind, and biomass together are now more than black coal and natural gas combined.
And you know, that I don't know if I've got this in one of these items this week, but one of the things that came up was that Andrea Merkel and her cabinet are talking about, now that they have started actually closing down nuclear plants, they're talking about intentionally closing down coal plants.
Yes.
In addition,
yes.
Yeah.
So let's look at the next two graphs. The first one is the absolute change in electricity production. So some of those are above the line and some of them are below the line.
You'll notice that all of the ones that are below the line are fossil fuels, with the exception
of the blue one, that's hydro.
And hydro is below because they've had a lack of
summer.
It's a hot summer and a lack of rainfall. All of the renewable power except for hydro is above the line. So renewables are growing, non-renewables are shrinking.
So it's saying still electricity from coal and gas has dropped a lot compared to 2013, where renewable energy generation has increased.
Right.
Well, that's what we've been talking about.
Right.
So the next graph is relative change in energy production. Again, the first one is absolute change. This one is relative change for the first 10 months of 2014 versus the first 10 months a year ago, 2013.
Yeah.
And it's just looking at the same thing in a different way. Relative change versus absolute change.
Right.
And again, we're saying basically the same pattern.
It's the same pattern, of course.
So the next one that we'll move up here is monthly production of solar and wind, or weekly production of solar and wind.
Now, this is something that's interesting. If you look at the chart on the left, the one on the orangey color on the top, I believe, is solar. Is that correct?
That's solar. Yep.
And
the gray one is wind.
Gray one is wind. Now you can see, wind power you get a lot in the winter. Solar you get a lot in the summer. When you get the two of them together, you see that on a monthly basis, they are almost level going across.
Well, that's exactly what he says here. Of course, as I've shown before, solar power and wind power are extremely complementary.
Yeah. That's
surprising how much combined electricity generation is similar
yeah.
from month to month.
Now
the top lines in those graphs are almost equal.
almost level. The graph on the right, though, shows weekly, and it shows why storage is important. Because if you can put storage in with those things into those graphs, they're going to level
then
out.
it's going to level off a lot.
And then you're going to have a power system which is probably superior to what you get out of fossil fuels for a bunch of reasons.
If you take a look, and they mention this here, the maximum weekly for the year was on a second week. The minimum weekly was on a fourth week.
Okay.
2 weeks apart, and they hit a maximum 1 week and a minimum the next over the course of a year.
Okay.
It's very variable.
Right.
But with storage, that variability
It's going to disappear.
Yep.
And the amount of storage that you need is surprisingly small. By the way, there was an article that appeared yesterday that said that the National Renewable Energy Lab had said we need 7 hours of storage to level things out.
Is that all?
7 hours, yeah.
Another thing you notice there, and it's logical, the colder weather, the winter months there, the beginning of the year and all of that, very little solar.
Oh, of course.
A lot of wind.
Yeah.
Okay. And as you get into the summer, it's a lot of solar and very little wind.
Yeah.
And as we have both mentioned, they're complementary.
They're complementary. In northern Germany, in the winter, or in Scotland, I don't know how much it is, but there's a solar farm in Scotland. And if you think about that, that's about as far north as Hudson's Bay.
Yes.
And I mean, we're talking about an area where the sun could rise at 9 o'clock in the morning and set at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
We don't
in the
really
winter.
Think about that.
In the winter.
Here.
Right.
Most
in the
of
winter.
Western Europe is to the north.
Yes.
Of
we are at about the level
I
of.
think Madrid and New York City are on the same level. You think of Madrid as being a warm
yeah.
place?
We in Brattleboro are about as far south as the southernmost part of France.
Okay.
And we don't think about that.
We don't think
but
of it.
but if you look at northern Germany or Scotland, as I was saying, almost no production in the winter. Well, what does that imply? It implies that they've got huge production during the summer, because if the winter sun rises at 9 and sets at 3, then the summer sun is going to rise at 3 and set at 9. That's a lot of sunshine.
Yes, it is. Long days.
Long days. Okay.
This last graph
Yeah.
shows that Germany is generating so much electricity that they're exporting most of it.
And they have been all along.
Yeah.
Even when they shut down all those nuclear power plants, they were exporting.
They are exporting a lot of electricity.
A lot of electricity. Yeah. Okay. Are we done with this one?
I think we are.
Okay. The next item here is also from. Wow, I've got so much stuff here.
Well, this is a good one. We've talked about this a lot.
Okay, I'm going to have to catch up because I got ahead of my computer. This is from the Boston Globe.
The Globe.
Actually, this particular article didn't originate with the Boston Globe. It originated with the New York Times, and it's been all over the place. The cost of electricity from solar and wind has plummeted over the last 5 years, so much so that in some markets, renewable generation is now cheaper than coal or natural gas. The trend has accelerated this year, with several companies signing power purchase agreements for solar and wind at prices below that of natural gas.
Well, this is the beginning. This is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Because that's only going to increase.
You know what I think is fun about this? Did you read this article?
Yeah.
This article cited examples, and they're examples that we talked about like in the spring on the show. They're talking about things that we've been talking about, and they're coming to the same conclusions that we have come to. So it's kind of fun to see that, they could have said, and by the way, we want to thank Tom and George who Okay.
Well, here's a takeaway from this. In Oklahoma, they're talking about American Electric Power ended up tripling the amount of wind power it had originally sought.
Yes.
After seeing how low the bids were.
Yes.
Okay? And the managing director says wind was on sale. It was a blue light special.
And you know the price of wind.
I don't think it's on sale. I think this is the new.
Yeah.
The new.
The and it's it's for the same reason that we've been talking about. The
technology is catching up.
The technology is catching up. What are they called? The cost of operating. Once the thing is paid off, the cost of running solar and wind is practically zero. So
your
so
fuel costs are zero.
the fuel costs are zero. So the cost of producing electricity is
of maintenance.
but it's very, very, very low.
Well, yeah.
And when that happens, it means that there are going to be power plants online, and they're already appearing, who have no costs associated with them to speak of.
Basically, yeah.
And so that means that the people who own those plants can afford to sell the electricity basically just to cover the rent.
Well, they're going to start looking at alternative sources of energy as their competition. If electricity costs more than gas, you're going to use gas. If electricity is cheaper than gas, people aren't going to be using it anymore.
That's right. That's right.
That's the new reality.
Well, this is an important article. It is an important set of facts, and it's something that we will return to. I'm going to say at some point in the show, remember what we just told you, because we're going to get back to this.
Well, they're talking about this here. Renewables had two issues. One, they were too expensive and they weren't dispatchable. They're not expensive anymore. And with storage coming online, they're going to be dispatchable. At least the stored electricity is going to be instantly dispatchable.
Instantly. It's going to be faster.
Get on there in seconds.
We're going to be able to get better electrical power, more resilience, better energy security, cheaper electricity. The whole thing is going to be better. What we have to do in order to get rid of that is to stop listening to Koch Industries. Okay.
Well, yeah,
and
but that's just propaganda.
And we will hit some propaganda down in a minute. We'll get to the propaganda. We'll have some fun with that.
Yeah, there's a goodie coming up.
Yeah. Anyway, next item, resilience. A recent study on critical resources of renewable power was performed by I'm going to pronounce this as German because it's obviously German, Wuppertal Institute. It might be Wuppertal. I don't know where it is. The conclusion is that the problem of mineral availability for renewable energy technologies is not critical if we choose the right technologies and we are careful to recycle the materials used as much as possible. This is from Resilience.
Yep.
It's a very simple statement here. We don't need to use critical exotic stuff.
Well, we've talked about this already. There's people coming out with alternatives that are using carbon instead of neodymium and stuff like this.
Yeah, exactly. Have you heard of carbon? Probably. Have you heard of neodymium?
When I first heard of transistors, they were made out of germanium. Now, I don't know how common germanium is, but I've never heard of
germanium is not terribly common.
But now they're all made of silicon.
Yeah.
And silicon is everywhere.
Everywhere. All you got to do is go to the beach. You'll get lots and lots of silicon.
It's not exactly the same kind of silicon, but it's still silicon.
Yeah, it is. And you can get the silicon for the electronics from beach sand, if that's what you really want to do.
If that's what you need, it can be done. And another thing, I don't know if this article says it or not, but a lot of the present solar units are using silver as conductors.
Yes.
Right now, because the price of silver is low, they could change to copper overnight and suffer very, very little.
But, oh yeah.
The cost wouldn't go up noticeably.
Yeah.
The performance would go down
slightly. Yes.
Not enough to make a difference. So I guess what I'm saying is the exotic materials that are being used now are being used because for one reason or another, they make sense.
Yes.
As soon as they don't make sense anymore, there is or will be a substitute.
Well, another thing too that you could consider about this, you mentioned neodymium. Almost 100% of the neodymium supply worldwide comes from China.
Yeah.
And it's very important because it's used in the wind turbines because it
makes very strong magnets.
Makes very strong magnets, and they're very light compared to relative to their strength. So putting them up, 40 stories in the air is a better bet. But the thing is, the reason why it comes from China is not because it only exists in China. As a matter of fact, before China started took over the neodymium market, the American producers were the biggest in the world.
I didn't know that.
And the reason why they are not any longer is not because they ran out. It's because the EPA said, you're going to have to clean up your act. So they said, okay, we'll shut down.
Okay.
So all you've got to do is pay just a little bit more for the neodymium.
As soon as it makes sense to do that, they're opening it.
Right. And you pay for protection of the American environment instead of pay to destroy the Chinese environment is the choice. Basically, that's what it is.
All these bubbles there on the right, they're looking into the future, but they're talking about what the sources of electricity are going to be in a generation or two.
Yeah, and what's available
and
to us.
Solar is going to be 23,000 terawatts a year. I can't even relate to terawatt.
Well, I can tell you what a terawatt is. If you put
1,000 gigs.
Yeah, if you put a terawatt of electricity through your household stove,
yeah,
it would flatten the building and probably a few buildings around. Okay. Power to liquids. This is something that's fascinated me for a long time. I've seen this stuff coming. It's been around for a long time, really. Truth to be told, some of this technology has been around for over 100 years.
Oh, yeah.
But power to liquids demonstration rig, which is the first of its kind in the world, was officially inaugurated by a Dresden-based Sunfire GmbH.
What is GmbH?
You got me. I don't know.
Oh, come on.
No, I don't know.
Gesellschaft mit something or other.
I don't know.
It's company with limited liability. It means corporation.
Basically, yeah.
Gesellschaft mit.
Gesellschaft.
Gesellschaft, yeah.
I don't know the rest.
I wish I took German at one time.
German is a fun language.
Yeah.
The new rig uses Sunfire's PTL, power to liquid technology, to transform water and carbon dioxide into high purity synthetic fuels, parens, petrol, diesel oil, kerosene. When they say petrol, it means gasoline. And with the aid of renewable electricity. In other words, they're taking the intermittent electric sources, solar and wind, and they're using them to turn carbon dioxide and water into fuel for your diesel-powered Mercedes.
So this is basically much different from the old-fashioned electrolysis. But they're coming up with fuel.
They're coming up with fuel, and if you look at the way they're doing this, what they're doing is a series of steps that involve taking the CO2 carbon dioxide, turning it into carbon monoxide by using a steam conversion. Then they're using what's called the Fischer-Tropsch catalysis, which was invented in the 1930s. Then they're using the mobile catalysis, which was invented in the 1930s. This was stuff that was available to and used by the Germans during the Second World War.
They didn't have access to petroleum.
Right. The problem with the technology was not whether it would work or not, but how much did it cost? And when you get to the point where gasoline is made from $80 a barrel oil is considered cheap, we're at a point where even though the oil is cheap, this gasoline can be brought on the market soon to compete with it. And again, we're talking about waste here, waste CO2 being converted into diesel oil.
So they're basically reversing what we're now doing. We're burning hydrocarbons.
Right.
And they're sucking the CO2 out of the
That's
air
right.
and making hydrocarbons.
That's right. And if we get to the point that we aren't using diesel oil or gasoline or kerosene, then what do we do with this stuff? I can tell you. We make plastics out of it. And where do the plastics go? Well, after they've been recycled a few times, they go into the landfill. And that's what's called carbon sequestration, which is the reason why we're going to get into a period in the not very distant future, a period when kids in high school today will still be alive. We're going to be seeing the carbon economy of the world being profoundly negative, so that more carbon will be sucked out of the atmosphere and put into the ground every year than, and in fact,
It's basically just a refinement of what I just said.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And we're going to have a guest, I'm told, in a few minutes, who is going to come in and explain a few things to us that I find fascinating. One thing he told me was that peat bog sucks more than 10 times as much carbon out of the air every year as a forest.
I didn't know that.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Well, let's keep going. That was from Renew Economy, and now we're up to Tuesday, which, since we're recording on Wednesday today because
So we're
Thursday's
almost getting to the
Thanksgiving.
end, yeah.
We've got 6 more items. UK's long-delayed final decision on whether the French electric utility company EDF will build 2 1.6 gigawatt nuclear reactors at Hinkley Point in Somerset. It was due in the new year. Projected costs have risen from 25 billion pounds, which is $39.4 billion.
$1 billion.
2 nuclear reactors, $39.4 billion. These reactors.
Just make it 40.
Yeah, okay, 40. Leaving the British government considering whether it's just a white elephant. Now, these nuclear reactors combined, they're big nuclear reactors compared to Vermont Yankee.
It's a different technology, isn't it?
Conceptually, it's the same. It's still critical mass.
Okay.
But it's different technology, yeah. But even so, the 2 of them combined are 5 times the size of Vermont Yankee. So we're talking about a new copy of Vermont Yankee worth of nuclear
5
reactor
times as large.
costing $8 billion.
It ain't gonna happen.
And in addition to that, they're talking about $3 billion to take that thing apart. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult proposition. And this is the plant that the government couldn't get anybody to build the plant unless they guaranteed that the price of power would be double the going rate, and for 25 years. And then they couldn't find anybody in Europe to do it, so they went to China. I kind of wonder whether this is ever going to happen.
Well, this is a takeaway from that particular article. It was a little box, but it's a good takeaway. The project is at very serious risk of collapse at the moment.
Yes.
Only 4 of this type reactor have ever been ordered. 2 of them are in Europe, and both of those are about 3 times over budget. One is about 5 or 6 years late, and the other is 9 years late. 2 more are in China and are doing a bit better, but are also running late. And that's a guy who's a professor of energy policy at the University of Greenwich.
Okay.
Or is it Greenwich?
It's Greenwich.
In Rhode Island, it's Greenwich.
In Rhode Island, it can be Greenwich. In the UK, it's in the United States, it's
in Connecticut, it's Greenwich.
It's Warwick, Massachusetts.
Warwick, yeah.
And in the UK, it's Warwick.
Rhode Island too.
It's Warwick in the UK.
Depends on whether you're from North Warwick or South Warwick.
I was in Warwick in the UK in 1962 and had the thrilling sight at 2 o'clock in the morning, because I was in a hotel with a window overlooking an alley. I heard a racket going on outside, and I looked out the window, and there was a guy who evidently was Scottish in a white kilt singing a Yorkshire folk song called "On Alcley More Batat." about it. The song is about, the girl, the person, the guy has gone out on the moors without a hat, batat, and he's going to catch his death cold, and he's going to die, and they're going to bury him. Worms are going to eat him up, and they're going to get eaten by ducks, and they're going to eat the ducks, and then they. Anyway, he was doing that, walking up the alley, doing the twist in a kilt.
Where was it?
Warwick, in England. A fascinating city. Where at least that part of the city I was in was fascinating. Yeah. Anyway, I think, let's see now. Yes. Houston Chronicle. The federal government said Monday that it will hold the largest ever competitive lease sale for offshore wind developments early next year. The area is more than 742,000 acres off the coast of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
If fully developed, the area could support as much as 5 gigawatts of commercial wind generation. And this, by the way, has a high capacity factor. It's about 0.4. So
yeah,
this is
it's out there at sea and
yeah,
the wind always blows.
there's a lot of power. It's always coming. Enough to power more than 1.4 million homes. And
That'll do.
Martha's Vineyard. And you put that power
I ran
all...
into trouble with this one. To continue reading this story, you will need to be a digital subscriber to the Houston Chronicle.
Oh, no. Why do I get to it and you don't? I don't get it.
I don't know. They wanted $3 a month, and I just figured, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I was going to say 5 gigawatts off Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
Put all that power through every electric stove in Martha's Vineyard, and you're going to melt every one of them.
No, but this is a good.
It's a good solution.
Good solution.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more where this is coming.
And you know what?
The whole eastern seaboard has that.
Yes. Cape Wind was supported.
Atlantic shelf.
Right. Cape Wind was supported by the Massachusetts Audubon Society and the Maine Audubon Society because wind power offshore saves the lives of birds. Even on shore it does.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because...
That isn't what we're hearing from
No, not from some. But, you know, the scientific studies I've seen say that for every bird that's killed by producing a gigawatt hour of wind power, you get about 40 that are killed by producing the same amount of power from traditional power plants.
Well, we don't hear about it.
No, we don't, and you don't see it.
Yeah.
You can visualize the blade chopping the bird.
Yeah.
What you don't visualize is the bird dying in the nest because its liver is destroyed by fossil fuels. We've got to get real about this stuff. If we're going to live the lives that we're living, then we've got to take a responsibility. Next item.
Yeah, the next one is World Bank to focus investment on clean energy.
Yep. And this is actually, I saw the same thing from them almost, in fact, I think it was over a year ago, but you know, this is a restatement. The World Bank.
That's a plant right there. It's a coal-burning plant.
Yeah. The World Bank will invest heavily in clean energy and only fund coal projects in, quote, circumstances of extreme need, end quote, because climate change will undermine efforts to eliminate extreme poverty, says the president of the World Bank, Jim Yong Kim. And
we were talking about him the other day. We were trying to figure out, was he Chinese or Korean or what?
Well, this guy is...
He's American.
Okay.
He was born in Korea, grew up in Iowa.
Okay.
Got his dual degree in PhD and MD from Harvard.
Oh my gosh.
He's been president of Dartmouth.
Really?
Yeah.
Just across the river.
This guy's no slouch. So he's the president of World Bank.
When I heard that he was raised in Iowa, though, I was going to make a crack about River City and the Music Man.
I'm wondering now, is Jim short for James, or is Jim some kind of Korean word?
Well, that's worth wondering about. I was going to sit here and say,
Thomas.
Obviously, he's Korean, but what?
His son is named Thomas.
Thomas.
Funny name, isn't it?
Yeah. Thomas is a funny name. It really is. But it's biblical, so that explains it. It's like, you know, Melchizedek or something like that.
This guy is no slouch. He's got a very good background.
Yes. Yes. He was alarmed by the World Bank commissioned research from the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research in Germany. That came from Business Green. And now, Wednesday, today being Wednesday, November 26th, this is a fascinating, we were talking about propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
This is a fascinating piece. Fascinating piece.
This is
Let me get through the description of this before you start thinking about it, so that you know what's actually happening. The piece is titled, Google Engineers Say Renewable Energy Won't Solve Climate Change. That's the title. And then it starts out, can climate change be solved with technologies like wind and solar energy? Question mark. No, it can't, according to a new report by 2 Google engineers. And this came from, guess what? Fox News.
fair and balanced.
Yeah, fair and balanced. Man, I'll tell you. And what I say in my comment on the blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com, you can go there and find it today. You can read the article. You should be aware of this very widely published story. It's been all over the place. It is about a project Google terminated years ago, 2011 to be precise. The data in it is comically out of date. This data was accumulated between 2007 and 2011. It is misleading, and they call it news. So they're basing this stuff on data, which is probably placing the price of solar power at about 4 times what it is. And they're saying it's too expensive. Yeah. And price of wind is about 2.5 times what it is today, and that's too expensive. And battery power is probably 2.5 or 3 times what it is today, and that's too expensive. So it can't work because it's all too expensive. And what else? These guys got terminated. Their program got terminated in 2011, and Google's invested about $1 billion in renewable power since then. Yep. So clearly Google didn't believe them. So what are we going to assume? That the people at Fox News are smarter and they've got it all figured out? My assumption is Google is doing its thing, Fox News is doing its, and they're both looking for money.
They got to pay their subscribers or their advertisers.
They got to pay their advertisers and the people
who want to hear this kind of stuff.
Yeah, who want to hear this kind of stuff.
It's propaganda, it's not news.
It's propaganda. There is some real news here, and the real news is that Google did this.
Yeah, Google is a fait accompli with Google.
Yeah, and the other half of the real news is Fox did this.
Yeah, right. Well, it's interesting because the takeaway is accurate if you look at it from the right viewpoint.
Yeah.
And what they're saying is that America needs to spend more resources on researching ideas that may seem crazy but might have huge impact. Well, they're doing that.
Yeah.
I've mentioned it before. There's a lot of bright people out there doing some things. Some of them way out of the box.
Right.
And some of them really they're going to hit the nail on the head.
Yep.
They're going to be the new billionaires.
Yep.
And it's going to help everybody.
Now, should we go on from this to the next
Yeah,
thing?
we're almost
done.
Running to the end here.
Yep. NRG Energy, the second largest conventional power generation company. I love this one. The second largest conventional power generating company in the U.S. has broken ground on headquarters touted as not just green, but ultra green and grid resilient. That means if the grid goes down, NRG's headquarters keeps going. And they are doing this as a showcase of the ability of businesses to foster sustainability while reducing grid dependence.
Well, this is the architect's drawing of what that building's going to look like.
Yes.
And if you notice, there's a couple of wind towers right in the parking lot.
Yep.
So these guys know what they're doing. It's going to be a demo project.
Yep.
But it also shows you what NRG is, which way NRG is headed. Because they're a big fossil fuel company now.
Yeah.
But they're moving.
Yeah. Okay, are we going to the last item now?
Yeah, this is the last one.
The Vermont, this is something which is just of interest to anybody who is watching the show who may be of interest. The Vermont Department of Public Service and its Clean Energy Development Fund are seeking proposals from qualified financial institutions with a physical presence in Windham County, Vermont, that offers loans to residential customers interested in development of the Windham County Solar Finance Program.
Right.
So
this article's from the Commons.
It's from the Commons,
if you
yes.
want to read the whole thing.
Yeah, the Commons is going to be up, basically, it's going to be around for probably the entire time that this program is broadcast. So if somebody who wants to get this can get it. You can go to this article at the blog, but you can also pick it up.
Guthrie on the front cover.
Okay.
He just died.
All right, now I think what we're going to do is break, and we will get back
Let
to.
me just finish what this thing is.
Oh, we're not done.
Basically, is they're soliciting ideas from the banks, from the local banks,
Right.
how they're going to help Windham County residents put solar on their roofs.
Right.
And we haven't seen the results of this yet. But
We will, though.
We can certainly expect the banks are going to be on top of this because it's money for them.
We will. We
it
will.
looks like a
we
good
will do
program.
that. Okay. Very good.
Spin and we toil, we work all day, sowing and reaping, we store goods away, so we can be dressed well on the day that we die. We dig and drill and waste what we find, break up the earth, leaving little behind. but we will grow lilies in the by and by. I want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.